talk about what Papa Powell
Welcome,
said.
welcome, welcome, everybody. Yep, we're gonna talk about what Papa Powell said today. Um, Good to have you guys. This is Eric here with our closing bell show. I've got Max here, our leading analyst, when it comes down to what's going on in the markets, the macroeconomic, and all the news that you guys want to know. I know today we had our FOMC. I definitely want to jump right in and let Max give you guys a rundown as to what exactly happened, so you guys get an idea of what to expect in the upcoming months and the upcoming meetings. I'm gonna leave our stacks running in the background so you guys get an idea of what's coming in as time expires throughout today. And a quick reminder too, we do not markets are not going to be open tomorrow. Tomorrow's Juneteenth, so it's considered a national holiday. And markets will open back up on Friday, which also happens to be quad witching, so something to keep in mind for that. We'll discuss a little bit about that as well as we go for. But Max, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's give them the rundown as to what happened with today's FOMC meeting and any other macroeconomic news that we need to share.
Yeah, so if you want to show my Discord channel, we can kind of review because I actually before about an hour before this meeting hit, I kind of outlined all of the scenarios that could occur. Um, and if you guys are in the Discord, you'll know that scenario number one is exactly what ended up playing out today. So as there are three scenarios that could have happened today. Number one is a hawkish hold, which is the result. Powell's tone is inflation risk is greater than rate cuts. So right now, as we heard him talk about, rates or rate cut inflation risk is higher than in terms of his priorities instead of rate cuts because they need to bring inflation down to that 2% target. 2.3% is great. It's showing that it's steadily decreasing, but it's not decreasing rapidly enough. And most people go, okay, but what about the labor market? Well, fun fact, the labor market, in order for that to be protected, quote unquote, we need to see higher than 4.4% because the range that the Fed is comfortable with dancing in is 4.2% to 4.4%. That is an cautious zone, but it's nowhere where they can justify delivering any type of cut. The dot plot did show us that we're going to get 0 to 1 cuts in 2025, and we're expecting inflation to make a tick back up towards 3% in the beginning of 2026 next year. So a little bit of a conflicting message there. And moves to consider with this is locking in saving yields and avoid new debt because obviously that new debt's not going to get any cheaper. Mortgages, they will be at about 7% coming up here soon. So keep an eye out on that as well because unfortunately, rate cuts have nothing to do with mortgages. It has everything to do with inflation. So you need to understand that if we get rate cuts with inflation actually decreasing, that's when we'll see mortgages and other things start to drop as well. The other possibilities we could have seen were a cautious dove. That means 2 cuts in 2025. We would have saw stocks pop, especially within tech. And then the final is the hawkish shocker. Tariffs plus oils plus geopolitics stay tight. Dot plot 0 cuts this year. Market reaction, market dumps across the board. Oil would rally, the dollar spikes, and bond yields will explode higher. So again, our key points to kind of watch are inflation, jobs, unemployment, consumer sentiment, and Middle East tensions because that is now a factor. But typically, we wouldn't have Middle East tensions or geopolitical risk in this formula. But yeah, where he came up, kind of said nothing, and then got picked apart during his Q&A. I think a couple people in the Discord have said, I have never seen Powell be like this uncomfortable during a post press conference in a sense. So it was a little concerning to see. I'm not gonna lie. I would expect a outlandish tweet from Trump in about an hour.
Yep. Yep.
Like,
Well, he
and
keeps
then
going back and forth on stuff. There was a point where he was like, "We need to fire him. I don't want him in to run the
yep.
Fed anymore." Then he uh, eventually was talking about how he was fine. He's not going to fire him. He's going to leave him alone. But then the most recent tweets have all just been bashing on how terrible he's been and how bad Powell's been for the markets and not doing what Trump wants in terms of cutting the rates. But one of the things I've also noticed is the fact that Powell has always reiterated the Fed has two main jobs: keeping prices stable and
Mhm.
making sure that we have full employment, right? So making sure that employment rate doesn't spike too high. Now, the issue that was the big headliner for the most recent is we've had a lot of, the employment has been fairly stable, but then inflation has kind of gone back and forth, gone back and forth. It has lowered itself in terms of from previous years, but the issue right now with the fact is that we just had these Middle East conflicts, which you guys might have noticed spiked the price of oil to that we haven't seen. It's starting to trickle back up again, and from that just reignites that inflation fear. So if there was going to be rate cuts, they originally were projecting for sometime in September, but because we now just saw new inflation fears and all this geopolitical risk, then we have to understand that, hey, they might have to hold back on those rate cuts for even longer, keep rates higher for longer, which has been part of their language. They've been talking about that, but they can't make those cuts too early, because if they decide to cut right now or cut sooner than later, that could bring even more inflation back into the markets and cause even more issues where down the line they might have to raise rates even higher than where they are right now. So keeping rates where they are, nobody had a question of whether or not there was going to be a cut today. There was not going to be. It was not going to change. But down the line, when it's going to happen, and his tone about when that possibly could be, that's what the markets were looking out for. And you can also see here on the charts, as they went into their speech. Powell had his speech. We saw this giant spike downward, and we've kind of just been chopping around since. Not as big of a move as I kind of would have expected in terms of fear in the markets and things like that. This is what a $4 move, a 0.69% in terms of a move on the SPY. Usually when you see bigger fears or more impactful type of moves, you'll see this move at least a percent or two. So in reality, today's FOMC was kind of a nothing burger, as you say. So
Yeah.
yep.
I mean, he came out and said nothing really in his speech, and that's why he was able to kind of get picked apart during his Q&A, because it was like, okay, you kind of didn't give us any updates because we're seeing all this stuff and you're up there acting like it doesn't exist, basically.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens down the line, but at the end of the day, it has everything to do with what those inflation and employment expectations look like down the line. And we'll keep an eye on that Fed dot plot to see when they do finally expect that movement. But I think it was like 99.9% that nothing was going to happen today. So I
Yeah.
saw a post saying, Powell has the chance to do the funniest thing today, and they circled the 0.1% to rug pull the market, but that didn't happen. So,
Yeah.
he's doing his job. I know that from President Trump, what he wants is to lower the rates so that you can stimulate economic growth, because compared to before, it has been fairly stagnant in terms of where we are right now. But a lot of
hmm
it also has to do with tariffs being in place and people trying to figure out what they need to do in order to stimulate their companies at this moment. So high rates lower that economic growth. That's why the president wants us to lower those rates. But if we do have that, it's just going to spike inflation and cause more havoc than anything. So
Exactly.
in terms of it too, so I had mentioned Juneteenth is tomorrow, so markets will be closed tomorrow. But one thing that we do want to keep in mind is there's also something called Quad Witching Day, which is going to happen on Friday. So the markets have, let me pull this up here. Ooh, wrong one. The markets have multiple days throughout the year where options will expire all on the same day. So you have your yearly, your monthly, your quarterly, sorry, yearly, quarterly, your monthly, and your weeklies. Okay, so when it comes down to options, you have a lot of different ways to get into those positions. However, the ones that are the most important are those quarterly ones because once a quarter, funds are going to go in, they're going to reposition themselves, and in terms of the futures, in terms of the stocks and all that, they're going to figure out what's going to be best for them for the upcoming quarter, upcoming year. They're going to reposition themselves. So what you have is called a quad witching day. Sometimes you have a triple witching day, depending on how many of those options and those futures all expire on the same day. So what we have is a quad witching day on Friday. And what that's going to do is a lot of these funds are going to go and look to reposition themselves. And I actually would say this the two sell-offs that we really had. So you had a little bit of it yesterday, and then you had it could possibly be with during the Fed meeting, which they can blame the Fed meeting for, where we see a bit of the sell-off. We could even see it going into the close today. And that's just really the funds repositioning themselves, getting out of certain positions, and then finding the next option or the next longer term options purchase to get into, depending on what they forecast for the upcoming months. So quad witching day, you see a lot more volatility. So for example, you can see if I pull up the VIX right now, the VIX had a bit of a spike, little couple spikes. We had it as well earlier in the week too. But if you take a look right now, we're starting to hover around that 20 range. And that's kind of when we'll start to see, if we break up above this 2180, you could see a little bit more of a pullback in the indices, especially SPY and QQQ. So something to keep in mind, keep an eye out for, because again, we've already dipped down below. We've seen equities go a little bit higher. And right now, a pullback would not be out of the picture. Oh, my bad. I didn't even have trading view up. There we go. VIX, that's what I wanted to show you. Going up above this 21. Let me make my face a little bit smaller here so you guys can see. There we go. So this right here, this shelf that we kind of been bouncing around off of, we're above 20 right now. So a break above that 2188 range, we could see a little bit more volatility, and we can see SPY and some of the other indices start to go down a little bit. Another thing to understand is the VIX and SPY are inverses of each other. So as the VIX goes up, you'll see SPY go down. As you see the VIX go down, you'll see SPY go up. So that's kind of what's going on right now. And SPY has really just been chopping around in this little range since we hit June. So expect that if we do hear more of warfare and bad news in terms of the Middle East, you could see SPY take a bigger pullback. But also keep in mind too, in terms of the markets, there is bullishness when it comes down to war. Unfortunately, with the way that our world works, is you have a lot of money that gets poured into defense, into a lot of these military stocks, and that's what ends up pushing a lot of it up. So keep that in mind too. All right. We'll also discuss, I know today we saw some Coinbase has been making some moves. A big part of that, I'll scoot this over, was that the Senate cleared the path for stablecoin regulation. So you'll see how Coinbase spiked quite a bit. If you're in our Discord, we did have, I believe Andy was one that called out some stuff with coin. So some people saw some pretty solid returns with that already as well. Earnings, I don't think there's any real earnings going on this week that are worth mentioning, especially with quad witching, meaning that the end of the quarter is coming up. We will start to see a new round of earnings coming up next month, so keep an eye out for those. one of the big fears that we have right now is that the tariffs and all the effects of the tariffs are going to start to make an impact on the bottom line for a lot of the more, the consumer type of stocks. In terms of, tech and things like that, probably won't make as much of an impact, but you have to understand if that fear starts to flood into the markets, it is something to consider. Sometimes you'll see a lot of selling off happen in those situations. So, earnings next season, I do believe, is where we're going to start to see a bit more of that pain. And as well as there has been a lot of projections about how Q3 and Q4 is when we're going to start to really see the recession start to hit in terms of everything that's happened over the course of the last few years. So that's something to keep an eye out for. The M2 money fund has started to expand as well. So that is one of the pressures that could start to push our indices, push our stock market a bit higher. You can understand we had some of the biggest amounts of money printing when it came down to the COVID times and came down to our lockdowns. We had a record amount of money being pushed into our system. And as of right now, we can understand if we do end up having another war start, there is the possibility that they will start to print more and more just to fund that, which also you have to keep in mind will cause more inflation. That's just part of the process there. If that does happen, you can expect that the Fed's going to look at that and potentially even push those rate cuts even further down the line. So something to consider there. All right. If you guys are in our chat, if you guys are listening, go ahead, comment stacks. I always like to know who's in here, who's listening. If you guys have any questions and if you have anything in particular you want us to take a look at, please let us know. One thing that I did also get today, I just wanted to make sure we show you guys too. I know we've got, for example, right here, if I pull up my settings, and let me move my face again so you can see. Anytime you guys want push notifications, this is not only for your desktop but also for your phones as well. You can go in here and you can create and enable your push notifications. What it's based upon is based upon what you've already made filters for. The main instructional I gave you guys is if I filter for Stacks AI, and that's what I want. I want to be notified anytime Stacks AI shows up, and I go enable those push notifications. Those are the things that are going to be pushed out to my phone, pushed out to me on my software. However, for example, if I decide that I only want to see when they purchase unusual meta contracts, I can go put those filters in there. So click off buy, click up unusual, type in meta, and then when I go into here under available, I can enable those push notifications. You'll see the ticker is only for meta, only the buy side, and only when it's unusual. If I hit that push notifications, that's what's now going to be, you'll see under current, that's what's going to be pushed out to me whenever it does come in. So I don't need to monitor it on a regular basis. It'll tell me on my phone when that does happen. But for me in particular, I also do our Stacks AI backtesting. So I keep my Stacks AI filter on and making sure that I enable those push notifications for myself. So when they do show up, that's what's going to show up on my phone. Okay, so you can do that with anything on it. Big money and unusual, you can hide the ETFs. You can even go in here and you can take it and say, hey, I want to filter when my premium. So in here, I can go into my filter on my premium and I can say anything greater than or less than $500,000 or so. I can go ahead and put that in there so that when I do have my push notifications, those are the ones that are going to show up. All right. Okay. Max, I totally cut you off at that one point. I don't know if there's something in particular you wanted to say. Oh, he's on. Might have ran to the bathroom. All right. Let's just do this for you guys real quick. Big money, unusual. What's being purchased? TER, VST got some puts. This Riot is a Stacks AI call out that we had 6 mil being spent on it. So it's very possible that they're expecting a crypto push, right? And you can also see, I'm sure Riot with the Senate probably jumped up a little bit as well. We could take a look at that real quick. Let's see. Trading view, Riot. Did Riot go up along with Coinbase? Well, definitely not as much. It had a little bit of a pump, but not nearly as much as Coinbase did. So they purchased those for end of this year, $12 strike. So they still got plenty of time in terms of that. But yeah, since Monday, iBit, GE, Reddit, GE again. That might be interesting to take a look at. GE. Something's probably going on brewing with that. You got anything for us, Max? Any news? Anything else worth? Oh, you're on mute, dude.
Not really. It's been pretty flat this week. I mean, GE was weird. Like that's that's like someone buying Cisco. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know. Like the flow's been really flat. Like today, even during the midday, we didn't even have enough golden sweeps to like fill up the whole screen. It was only like half full. Um,
I think everybody's been waiting for the FOMC meeting to go, to be done with, and also with quad witching on Friday, it's probably not the best time to get into, calls in terms of that, especially with
yeah.
volatility expected to spike. GE, I'm just looking at this in terms of the charts. It's already made, making new all-time highs in terms of recently. Another thing is the fact that let me make sure we move our faces again. On the bottom end of here, you'll see that we got our stochometer pretty far down. So it's it popped up higher, sold off a bit, and it's looking like there could be another move up in due time. GE Aerospace probably has something to do with it. That's the way I look at it. They've
Yeah,
got
but even Yahoo Finance even just came out and said Boeing, GE, Ford, and Intel are all being severely outperformed by their overseas competitors. So it's not like they're, I mean, there was a NBT Bank just bought shares 11 hours ago,
mm-hmm.
according to MarketBeat. Let's see. The firm owned 12,294 shares of the company's stock after buying an additional 1,497 shares during the quarter. They're worth 2.46 million as of its most recent SEC filing.
Yeah,
Oh,
sometimes with weeks like this, my suggestion is to learn to sit on your hands and for uncertainty, and when you really don't see the big institutions really trading during the week, you probably want to stay out of it if you can. Yeah, I'm looking over here at insider trades. We got this BAFN. There's a bunch of buying going on in there. OBT,
let's see.
ASB. A lot of ASB being purchased.
A lot of Rocket Lab was sold.
Dividend though. Rocket Lab, is that what you said?
Yeah, RKLB. Damn.
Yeah, it's all selling.
I know,
We
like
got
that was
15 mil right there.
21, 24, 20,
Yeah, that's
like
a lot.
29, 30 million almost sold in auto executed orders, it looks like,
Yeah.
because all at 139. Jesus. What's up with this ASB thing?
Take a look. Let's see. ASB Associated Bank Core. Is that new all-time highs as it's recent? Yeah. Headed up. The daily stochometer is fairly low on that. They've got earnings coming up next month, July. Still, yeah. I mean, maybe they know something. Maybe they got something coming up.
A lot of selling on GD. Ooh, some sells on Hims. A lot of sells on Hims yesterday. 2.26 million, 2 points. Wow. Yeah, these were big.
Yeah, by the CEO, CCO. Hmm.
Interesting.
Well, let's also on our flow scanner on the other side of it. Our flow scanner's got SPY 419 million calls to the 81 million puts. That's pretty bullish. Nvidia about a 2-to-1 ratio when it comes calls to puts. Tesla slightly bullish. IWM very bearish actually, 36 mil to 8. Microsoft extremely bullish, 41 mil. Something came out. Some news came out about Microsoft, didn't it?
I'm not sure. I just know they became the most valuable company again.
What else happened with Microsoft? I swear I heard something about that the other day.
Okay, so somebody knows something because what? That's weird. We just got a block of golden sweeps for Friday expiration and
Ooh, look at that.
575, 570, 580, 580, all deep in the money. What the hell?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a those are big premiums.
Yep.
Like,
In the money usually tells me that like they expect the move, but they're trying to play it safe. 570, 575, 580. So is prices in this case predicted to go up by Friday, right? The fact that they're willing, I mean, they're also willing to when you buy it in the money like this, you don't have as much of a theta decay. So
yeah.
they're holding it through tomorrow, which is a day that market's off. So very interesting, but definitely would not be. This could very likely be related to, maybe there's going to be some sort of announcement about the Middle East and how maybe the U.S. won't be getting into things, and that might be bullish for the markets in that case. That would be my prediction with something like this. That's my hunch. Is if somebody's spending that much money on this, there's, it's more greed than fear, if anything.
I mean, Trump literally came out and said, "We're good."
Yeah, we're
Like,
good. We're not gonna do anything. Yeah,
he literally he said hard pass. Like,
yeah.
what? Like, did his kid tell him to say that? Like, what do you think we should do? Hard pass on war, Dad. Hard
Yeah.
pass. Like, excuse me, sir, you're the president of the United States, not a TikTok influencer. So we're definitely not getting into the war. And by the way, that print was worth 175 million.
Ridiculous. It's a lot of money, guys. A lot of money.
Like 175. Let's see what the context is here. I just put a breakdown. I put two new breakdowns in our Discord. NVIDIA call blocks came in, and then this SPY call block. Doesn't always mean that something's gonna come of these. Sometimes I just post them because they're weird and it's something worth noting. Interpretation is could be a leveraged upside bet into tomorrow slash Friday's FOMC aftermath. Could also be delta hedging by institutions following bullish short exposure, but given the short data to expiry and magnitude of size, it smells like conviction, not caution. So I think, Eric, you might be right. We could see a pump on Friday after everyone kind of now that FOMC settled. It came exactly in line, which was hawkish. That's what everyone was expecting. And then with us staying out of war, that should be some kind of catalyst to send us into the green going into Friday, and then set us up for a nice little gap down going into next Monday.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking too. At least with all this coming in right now, shoot, 175 mil. They're not just throwing that expecting it to go down. So, they definitely see a SPY making a pump on Friday. By Friday, who knows? It might happen after hours at this point. Um, but yeah, that also adds into SPY's total calls too. So
Yeah, that's gonna be 175 million. Like, excuse me. Yeah, so SPY today had 421 million in overall premiums pumped into it, with 398 million going
mm-hmm.
into calls.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Next closest index is QQQ with 26.23, with a nice little 50-50 split, like a casino
Yeah.
game.
And here this one with Coinbase, right? You see Coinbase today getting 20 mil in flow compared to the 2 mil in puts. So our flow scanner definitely gives you an idea of what the big money sentiment happens to be. And you can always go in here and take a look as to what exactly they're purchasing too, what their most common contract happens to be. In this one, it's the 580 for Friday.
We just got another 105 million, by the way, dumped in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, all this 10 10 10 10 10 10 10 10. They sold some calls at the 575, but yeah, 580, 570, 580. Well, I mean, if you guys are watching this on Friday, let us know. Let us know what ended up happening. I mean,
This is
like
ridiculous.
the question is, what's the real news? Could it be like they're going to call a ceasefire and they're going to stop all that going on over there? Like, somebody knows something here. Somebody knows something. Stacks is trying to sniff it out for you.
Because this is not random, I can tell you that much. This is way too coordinated to be random on top of that.
100%. 100%.
Like, this is not Reddit going out and YOLOing, and then we're gonna see some loss porn on Reddit.
With the 175 mil, right?
Yeah, I YOLO'd 175 million of my family's net worth into SPY calls for Friday.
Doing it on Robinhood.
Oh my God. I think Robinhood would have literally crashed if it had someone buy 175 million worth of.
All right. Well, since there's not too much else going on in the flow, I'll put that back up in a bit. I kind of want to do a little bit of a review of other stuff that we had going on this week, and I also want to give you guys an update on the 1K challenge. The 1K challenge, the NU, those puts have kind of fluctuated quite a bit. They've dropped as much as I think 20%, gone up about 10 or 15%, come back. They're still, out of those 10 contracts, we're down 2 cents, so a total of $20 on that one. So not much has changed in terms of the NU put. The Wolf WULF, those have gone down a little bit. Those are down about 30%. We're still holding those 5 contracts right now. We got in at about 78 cents. They're down to 54 cents, but did have a spike earlier today back up to 61. Still nothing. I mean, keep in mind, those have quite a bit of time. Those ones have up until November, almost the end of November. So, I will be notifying our Discord and also our Stack software. I'll be notifying that in the main chat if I make any changes on them. I will say, compared to some of the other moves that we've seen before, this one's probably going to take a little bit of time. It's definitely something that you're going to have to be a bit patient with because, again, we're starting off with such a small account. If we are to see quick returns and things like that, sometimes it's luck. But on the other hand, if it was to come super quick, those would also mean that we're taking extreme, much more extreme risks. The goal here with our 1K challenge is to make sure we get into something that gives us a little bit more wiggle room. And again, having a little bit more time and sometimes playing some of these cheaper contracts that are a little bit further out of the money. Those are, it's just a matter of trusting our system and trusting what we have in terms of what Stacks has told us, and living by that. If we do see it, start to trickle down further and things like that, don't worry, I will let you guys know if we're going to get ourselves out of that position. We do at this point still have a little bit of buying power. So if it does get to a point where our thesis still sticks, maybe we'll see some continued buying of some of those contracts. We will look to possibly average down. But as of right now, it's still nothing major. A 20-30% swing in one direction. Max and I have already told you guys that's nothing at this point. We're looking at the end. We're looking for 50% plus return on those. And as of right now, it's just a matter of staying patient with those.
Okay, we just got a 590 call right before. So like they buy till like 415 typically.
Mm-hmm.
And a 590 at 414 for 3.3 million just came in.
Yeah, this came in. They sold some puts too on that. Same amount.
Straddle.
Yeah. Still bullish on each side.
Well, because that means they're not expecting price to break below 590, if anything.
I mean, again, with FOMC, we really didn't see much of a movement. So it was nothing in terms of nothing unusual or nothing out of the blue that created any sort of fear, right? It's all, it's regular programming in terms of it. So and that reaction where we saw a little bit of a dip, that was nothing either. Like I said, 6.69%, if anything. So business as usual.
Let's see what else is going on. Since in IWM, looks like the psychological level for that's going to be $200 a share. A lot of IWM being sold.
Yeah.
Mr. Calls 390s being sold. OSK.
We've been seeing a lot of talk about how Bitcoin's supposed to make another big move soon. Yeah, a lot of these are very short term for MicroStrategy too. This week and next week.
I was gonna say I hardly ever see Mr. long dated anything really. And if it is, it's like 2 years out. But I've never seen like a 2-3 month Mr. swing. It's always like 2 weeks out, a month out, 6 weeks out at the most.
Yeah, if you scroll down this, it's all 620, 627, and maybe a 718.
Yeah, 718.
No, I thought that was an 8. That's a 6. That's still a 6. Everything's for. Oh, we got a 9 here, so we got September. 1 September.
I was gonna say, so the most popular strikes I'm seeing in flow right now for long dated, where I think people are expecting moves, are September 19th, 2025, and then July 18th, 2025 are two of the most popular dates that I'm seeing for expiration and that's across like a lot of different contracts, by the way. So not just for Mr., but for a lot of different companies, that 718 is getting really popular.
Well, yeah, it's just the next month out. So once we get closer to this expiration for this Friday, So a little strategy when it comes down to picking out your options contracts is understanding where the liquidity and where the other traders are going to be mostly positioned. So for big contracts like SPY, big equity ETFs, things like that, you're going to have weeklies and you're going to have some dailies as well. Generally
Mhm.
with dailies, generally with weeklies, those are going to be ones that have a little bit less liquidity, meaning less fewer traders that are going to be willing to buy and sell from you. Then when you hit those monthlies, you'll definitely see the volume and the open interest spike a bit in those. And then obviously if it happens to be a quarterly type of position too, those ones are going to be big. And what ends up happening, just like we're talking about here, you have a lot of 620 expirations, and then the next one that you'll start to see people open up is going to be that 718. So people, they'll start to migrate from one month to the next, and especially when you see them not purchasing weeklies, it just shows that there's not enough interest, open interest, and enough volume in those for them to make a solid trade. Because when that, like I've always said, bid ask spread is going to get too big on certain trades, you'll end up losing out on trying to find a buyer or a seller for those contracts. So that's why they very quickly move on into that next monthly expiration. And once that one starts to get closer and closer, the last week or two of it, you start to see a lot of drop off. Then they start moving over to the next month or the next quarter. So it's just a part of that options game that you'll start to notice.
This is a slow week.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow week. I
Like
think,
I was trying to look at stuff for today and I was just like, man, like nothing is really going on.
I mean, FOMC meeting was definitely the headliner for the week, and then I think it got hijacked a little bit by Middle East tensions. But the uncertainty of that, I don't know, I feel like for the previous conflicts that we've seen over the course of the last few years, there was a lot more uncertainty surrounding those. I,
Yeah.
I I don't know. I think that with the way that Trump tweets, like you get an idea of what's supposed to happen pretty quick, and then
Hmm.
people they take their sides on that fairly quickly. There was a lot of fear due to the tweets that Iran was making as well. There was something about how there was, something was going to happen overnight that was going to be remembered forever. There was a tweet that went out that they sent, but so far we haven't really seen anything at this point. So there has been further deployments. I heard of we've been sending more planes, and there are videos of American soldiers getting steak and lobster, or yeah, steak and lobster apparently, which I guess is a meal they give them before they send them off. I don't know if that's true or not. Could just be propaganda on TikTok for all I know. But we will see, especially this weekend. I think if we see any action being taken or a firm stance of no, we're not going to get involved, and I think that's going to happen fairly soon because they can't just let it continue to drag on at this point like that.
No, it has to come to some resolution.
But if Stacks knows anything, I would definitely say Stacks is leaning bullish. What and that to me tells me more so that hey, nothing big is gonna happen
Or come of it.
or at least this week nothing big is gonna happen. There is this belief that if war is declared that stocks would drop, but there's also an understanding that yeah, they might drop initially, but down the line they're going to start to rise back up. A big part of it also has to do to is due to the fact that if we are to participate in a war, we have to print more money in order to fund it. There's no way that we're going to be
Hmm.
able to fund it without expanding our money supply further, which yes, they can use that as the excuse as to why inflation's coming back to bite us all in the butt again. But oil's gone up, oil, and I'm over here in California. Apparently, there's another gas tax that's supposed to hit us at the beginning of next month. So they've got some people predicting gas going to be like $6 to $7 a gallon over here, which is
What?
yeah, it's already around 5. 4. It's a little under 5 at this point. We saw 5 to 6 when it went up real high, due to the last money printing we saw. Well, that's part of living in California.
Man, I think I complain when I have to pay like 319 because I couldn't find 289.
Yeah, yeah. If you're in the chat and you're a Californian, tell me how much you paid for gas last time you went to the pump. I went to Costco the other day. I think it was like mid to high $4, so 460 something maybe. And I mean that's San Diego. There's parts, LA, and if you go right off the highway in LA or even somewhere in the Bay, I'm sure it's closer to 5 in some places. So for convenience.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
last time I filled up, it cost me $37.
Yeah, I'm not getting out there under like 55 to 60. So, yep.
Oh,
Yeah, don't you complain about your gas prices.
I never will. I growing up in California, then moving out here, I'm like, as long as it's under $4, I'm happy.
Oh
I don't
man.
care.
I still have pictures of when I first started driving when it was $1.99 and that was considered expensive.
Oof.
Ugh. Well, if you guys have anything to say in the chat, go ahead and let us know so we can look it up and discuss it a little bit with you guys. I figure usually we have a little bit longer than this, but Max and I are big basketball fans. We were just discussing WNBA and a little bit of NBA stuff. We saw our first big brawl in the WNBA, which we believe is gonna start improving viewership a little bit. Um, got Caitlin Clark in the mix, and Sophie Cunningham standing up to defend her and things like that. They're joking about how that's her Draymond Green to step in and be the enforcer. I mean, I'll tell you this: WNBA it's still a fairly new business when you consider it. They opened up, I believe it was like 1990s or something like that, or early 2000s. Um, so they're still fairly new, but at the end of the day, they're they're making a move. With Caitlin Clark expanding viewership, women's sports starting to take more of a step toward the big TV contracts and things like that. Another one I love Paige Beckers. I think she's a baller. She's
Dude,
gonna help
she's a
expand it too.
beast.
Yeah, she's definitely gonna bring some viewership. And at the end of the day, they're gonna create their storylines. They're gonna create their rivalries. And it's a new generation of WNBA. So it's good to see. I coach basketball too. That's I've over at the Wolverines basketball camp over here in San Diego this week. But one of the things I always tell my students and my players is that WNBA actually is a much more cerebral game than the NBA. NBA, you can get by being athletic and jumping out of the gym, and being able to allow that to overcome the IQ side of basketball. But WNBA, you got to have solid fundamentals to play in the WNBA. You can't just go and dunk over somebody or muscle your way past people. You got to be able to understand spacing and the plays a little bit better than just being fat. I like to think Westbrook was just faster and more athletic than everybody. I mean, he's still a great and a smart basketball player, but just for an example, is you can rely on your athleticism in the NBA, whereas WNBA has a lot more of, you got to understand the game a lot better to be competitive in that arena. So,
I mean, luckily there's only 13 teams though, so it's not
and
that
they
that's
expanded
crazy
too,
though.
right? They expanded. There's the Golden State Valkyries now. They've got their first Taiwanese American player as well, so I'm excited about that. I'm Taiwanese, and again, it it's interesting to understand. You got to understand all these big sports businesses are entertainment businesses. That's what they're categorized as. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of, there's a bunch of controversy about Luka getting traded and then them giving the Dallas Mavericks the number one pick afterwards. But it doesn't have to be fair. They have a storyline, they've got a bottom line to protect, they have to make money and make revenue. So at the end of the day, they can, if it is rigged, I believe it is.
Oh, 100%.
That's the way that they've set up their business, right? And that's just how it is. and that's why there's also a lot of people that enjoy the NCAA, college basketball a little bit more because, I mean, they still have their ways of rigging things there, but at the end of
I
the
was gonna
day,
say
it's all what it is.
NIL's about to ruin that like it ruined football.
Yeah. NIL,
Because
they make a
why do you
lot of
think
money.
Nick Saban literally was like, I don't, it wasn't that he couldn't compete. He's like, I just don't want to deal with that. He's like, I don't want to deal with having like kids expect demanding money and like parents and all this other stuff. Like he wanted out because he knew it was just gonna get worse and worse. So
Yeah.
give the NCAA, give the basketball like another couple years, and it's basically gonna be like Duke, who's gonna beat Duke to potentially win a national, or who's gonna beat what school to win a national title.
Yep. And
Um,
I saw this thing how Cooper Flag made 24 mil last year.
yeah, dude.
24 mil. Him as a rookie, he's not going to touch anywhere close to that for his salary. It's all going to be, obviously, it's all off of sponsorships,
Yeah,
and corporate money. But at the end of the day, it's completely changing the way that, they approach it. And, same with women's NCAA, right? You got Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark that made a ton of money just being the face of it. And their salaries in the WNBA are it's chump change in terms of what they can make just off of sponsorship. So you definitely will also see, more players opting to stay in college too because they'll make more than, possibly being a draft pick. But the thing with basketball too is being understanding that, a life changing injury can derail that entire track and that entire career. So it used to be get to the NBA and secure that bag as soon as you can. But now it's possible that they might opt to stick it out in college a little bit longer.
that might be the case.
Yeah. Looks like nobody else has anything else they need us to look over. If you guys are interested in more of these closing bells, let us know. If you guys want to jump in on the lives that Max is having, Max is doing a lot more lives throughout the week, throughout the day, just going over the flow, going over what he sees. Don't forget, you got to subscribe to a Substack, which is already in our Discord link, or already in the description box below. You also have his Trades and Gains channel on YouTube if you guys want to get a subscription to that too. And then go ahead and follow him on Twitter just because he does post those live streams for you guys to jump in and to go hang out with him, discuss a little bit of what's going on. You can always ask him questions. He's here to help.
Yep. And next week, I'm actually going to be streaming. So starting next week on Monday, I'll be streaming from market open to market close. So you'll get to see how I like find plays and all that kind of stuff live because all the stuff I'll be tweeting out, putting in my Discord channel, trades I'll be finding and sending to Eric for our 1K challenge. All of that is going to start being documented on a daily basis. So yeah, feel free to come hang out because I'll be there every day.
Yep. And then if you guys are interested in getting the Stacks software, that we only do these live streams on Wednesdays right now as market closes. If you want to use it to supplement your analysis, supplement your trading, we do have a code here, 130 ONE, number 3, number 0. That's $30 for your first month of Stacks. That way you guys get to try out the software, see how much it can benefit you, and hopefully, become a yearly annual member because, again, it helps a lot of us out with our trading, a lot of us out with our analysis. All the rest of our links, our website, our Instagram, our Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, all those links are in the description box. Go ahead and go and follow us, give us a like, comment on some things. That way we know you're around and that you're there. And don't ever hesitate to ask us questions. If you do not have access to our Discord, you can always go ahead and let us know. If you've got questions, go ahead and send them over to help@investorcentralclub.com. we're there to help you guys out. Whether it is also if you have questions with how to use the software and things like that, and can't find those videos, let us know from there. Last thing, Pacers or Thunder tonight?
Pacers. I gotta go with the Pacers. I think Tyrese has a great bounce back game. They gotta take it to 7 games because then I think if the NBA really is scripted, in my head I'm looking at it like imagine Shy being MVP and then taking it to 7 games and winning the finals in 7 games, getting
Yeah.
NBA Finals MVP. Because Jalen just put up 40.
Yep.
So now Shy needs another game to like one up everybody.
Yeah.
So,
I'm.
oh
I look
wait,
at it that. I look at it
Ralph,
as what?
Ralph, is Scott Foster reffing? Oh, that's a good.
That's the big question. The
Gilbert
extender.
Arenas, Gilbert Arenas on stream the other night. He saw Scott Foster walk onto the court and he was wearing the Indiana Pacers jersey. He immediately took it off. He was like, "Oh, Scott." He's like, "Scott's in the building." He's like, "It's OKC. It's OKC."
Like from an NBA business perspective, having this go 7 games definitely sets up the new generation of players for not only a bit of a rivalry between the two, but definitely gives SGA that opportunity to showcase it. And I mean, again, the what was that one stat that said that no team had won 2 back-to-back games so far? It's been back and forth, back and forth. So OKC finally took one back on their own court. So it's I would love to see it go Game 7 because Game 7 finals is always that's it's something that you hope for. Seeing teams get blown out isn't always fun when it comes down to that last level of championship. So, but either way, I think what I think though is we really got to see if Halliburton's really hurt with that calf strain. The last calf strain that we saw that was very impactful was Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant had a calf strain in the finals, and that's where he tore his Achilles. So you got to be careful with that type of thing because again, that posterior chain is all connected. But Halliburton, if he's able to come out and show up, I'd like to see the Pacers take it, especially at home, and then go back to OKC for that final game, Game 7. So, I mean,
I mean,
I know what the NBA wants to see.
yeah, I mean, Harden came out and dropped what, 30 or 40 on a blown out hamstring. Like he blew his hamstring out the game before it came out the next game, like 2 days later, and dropped like 40. So it's definitely possible. And
Yeah,
Halliburton, I'm not saying is as good as Harden, but like he is the James Harden of his team to a degree.
yeah,
So that he has to come out and score. And if he's not doing that, then because people are like, "Oh, Miles Turner shot 5 shots." I'm like, Miles Turner whole game is dependent on people driving to the lane and dishing off to him. He's not gonna beat you one on one. He's not gonna beat you on post moves. He's gonna beat you on closing in and then dunking on you or getting acrobatic around the rim. He's not an ISO player. So
Well, also Halliburton, everybody's commenting how he only had like what 4 points last game, but the stat
yeah,
that stood out to me more was that he only had 6 assists.
yeah,
And
that's concerning.
he's a great passer, a great facilitator, and he's one of those players that gets like 15 assists and 0 turnovers. Which again, if you're passing that much, you're helping your teammates finish. That's so important to your team. And switching him out and having um, was it Nembard and what's his name?
Oh my
TJ
God,
McConnell. TJ McConnell.
Nemhard. No, but Nemhard sold that game. Someone broke down the fourth quarter and they said every time he touched the ball, it was either a turnover or a severely missed shot leading to a basket. Every time he touched the ball, but yeah, TJ McConnell, that he's Kobe and LeBron respect him. That's all you need to
Yeah,
know about TJ
yeah.
McConnell. Like,
He he'll guard the whole court, and he has this clip where he talks about how playing hard is a skill, and that he knows he's not the biggest guy, not the strongest guy, but he's going to give it all. So, but again, having those two guys replace Halliburton isn't going to come anywhere close to what Halliburton can produce. So,
Exactly.
yeah. Ralph saying they need Shea to win it all after Jaylen Brown won the MVP last year. Yeah, that's true.
They hate Jaylen Brown. God, the NBA hates Jaylen Brown.
I mean, Celtics is going to full rebuild mode at this point. They put
I
everybody
mean,
up
Jason,
except for Jason Tatum. So everybody's up for trade at this point. I mean, fully rebuild.
nobody's job is safe.
Yep. Okay.
That's how the
Yeah. Guys, we'll try to do this a little bit more next week. After I'm done with camp, I'll probably try to do 2 of these next week if we can. Get you guys a little bit more. Hopefully, some more action happens in stacks throughout the week so that we can get you guys. But again, we do have earnings season coming back up around the corner. If you guys enjoyed this, give us a like, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification button so you'll know whenever we go live again. Hope to see you guys in the next one. And make sure you guys come and participate. Let us know. Give us those likes. Give us those little hearts, emojis, and we'll be more inclined to do more of these for you guys. All right. Have a great rest of your guys' day. We'll chat again soon. This is us with the closing bell.